Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. For today's workshop, we're going to be creating a small painting which can be used as a standalone painting or as a journal prompt card. And what we're going to do, this one's going to take a little bit more work in the actual prep part. The painting part is fairly easy. What I've done is I've prepared a line drawing, okay, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, but I just want to go over some of the supplies. This is a 4x6 torn piece of 140-pound cold-pressed watercolor paper. This is Arches paper, and when I mean torn, I measure everything out. I took a whole sheet, measured it into 4x6 with a ruler, graphite pencil, scored it with a Born folder. You can also use an X-Acto knife. It's just to make a small indentation. Then fold the cardstock back, the paper back and forth, and it just tears really easily. I'm going to show a technique using graphite paper. Okay, we need, this is a Royal 2B pencil, a drawing eraser. I'm going to be using a stencil. This is the DecoArt Classic stencil. This is Jacobin Floral. We're going to be using this in an interesting way. And I'm putting paper towel on top of it because there's a terrible glare from the lights. Paints, we're going to be using DecoArt Traditions paints and mediums. I'm going to be using multi-surface sealer. Okay, the acrylics, which are in my palette, I'm going to go over the colors: carbon black, chrome green hue, cerulean blue, naphthol red light, yellow oxide, raw umber, titanium white, and then I have a portrait mix already made up, and I'm going to cover that in a second. Brushes, I may need these, all of these, I may not. Now you don't need to take notes. I'm going to put everything that I actually do use at the end of the video. So I have my favorite number 8 Bristle Bright. I use this for stenciling. I have a number 2 script liner, a number 1 round, and a number 6 and 12 filbert, and a 1/2 inch mop brush. These are Majestic brushes. These are Royal Soft Grip. And I'm not fond on numbers on brushes because they're all different. I simply say, unless I say otherwise, use the biggest brush possible when painting. Otherwise you get stuck in details. Typical supplies: brush basin, mister bottle, palette paper, paper towel, kitchen wipes, baby wipes, masking tape, all that other general stuff you should have anyways. Okay, now for the prep part of this, what we're going to do is we're going to create a little piece here, and I'm calling this piece Seeking Solace. And my version of this is I'm creating a journal prompt card, and what I do is I take these cards, I give them to people, and they create a piece of art based on what they see here. It's their interpretation. Okay, it's called a visual prompt. You can do this as a standalone piece. So everything that I'm teaching, you can do this on any size you want. You just have to enlarge the drawing, and on anything that accepts acrylic paint. Okay, now we're not going to transfer the drawing yet because we have to do a resist stencil, okay, which means we're going to do some stenciling, but we're going to stencil with the multi-surface sealer. And what happens with that is it's invisible in the beginning, but when we put the paint on top, it resists the paint, and then the stencil marks will show through the paint. Okay, it's a little hard to explain, but you'll see. What I want to do is I've got the line drawing under here first. I want it right in the bottom left corner. I've already sized it that way, okay, because what we're going to do is that you have this area here that you can do writing, or you can put, on the computer, print out with a really cool font. You can get some amazing fonts at freefonts.com. You can put Seeking Solace or whatever you want. Okay, so right at the bottom left corner, leaving this area blank. And the Jacobin stencil, I'm turning it on its side because there's an indentation here and here, and I want to line it up right over the eye. Okay, but I want to bring it down as far as possible. And what I'm going to end up having to do, I do not want to cover the eye. Okay, so I'm going to bring it down as far as possible. Then I'm going to take my masking tape, and I'm going to mask off the area. There's that glare again, sorry. And I'm going to mask off that area of the stencil tape that down so it doesn't cover the eye. This part here. I don't care about the lower lid. It's just the actual where the eyelashes are, because it'll look funny. Now this one here, let's get a close-up here if I can find the remote. This one here, okay, see how it comes out? It's going to look really funny, so I'm just going to put that like that. There we go. Okay, so that takes care of that. I could even mask this one off. Do I need to? No, not really. Okay, now I'm going to remove that drawing. Okay, let's lay the stencil back down here. And I can see through the stencil, through the tracing paper I should say. That's actually really good right there. All right. I'm going to shake up my sealer. Now, at the same time, have a couple of kitchen wipes handy, already out. And I'm going to put them on the side because I'm going to show you how to quickly clean your stencil in case you can't get it to water right away. I'm going to use my number 8, make sure it doesn't move, my number 8 Bristle Bright. And stencil over everything. Use a good amount. Now, if you use less, what's going to happen is that it won't resist as much acrylic. So that's completely up to you. What you could do is try a bunch of different thicknesses and see. Just remember, the thicker the medium, the longer it takes to dry. And this stuff here, I let dry naturally. I don't use my heat gun to dry this. Now, I'm going to be covering all details of the project, including, I don't edit out my mistakes. I would rather cover more information for beginners, because one thing I get so upset about is when a beginner says, oh, you skipped over this part, you know, can you explain it? And then most of the time it's too late, I don't remember what I did. So if you're more advanced, just fast forward through any parts that are too basic for you. Okay, brush immediately in water. Don't slide the stencil, lift the stencil up. Okay, I'm going to put this card away. Okay, so I'm going to put my, now this is a Ranger's Craft mat, nothing sticks to it. I'm going to put my stencil right on top, take another kitchen wipe, and just very carefully wipe up the medium. And you've seen me, for those who followed my videos, you've seen me do this technique when I do this with paint and I put this on top of another piece of artwork, and when I wipe it back with a paper towel, the paint actually goes right back into the stencil. So it's where I'm not wasting any paint. Okay. Come on. Then flip it over. Do it again. Okay. And this will buy you some time before you can get it under some running water. Running water is the best. You can tell when mine is dirty that I haven't been able to get to it that quickly. Okay. And we'll just take this off. We don't need this anymore. Alrighty. Put that aside. Now, you won't be able to see this yet. You can see some of the stenciling there. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry for about 15 minutes. Then we come back, you'll be able to see it more, and then we're going to transfer our line drawing. This is all dry now. Now let's see if I can tilt it so you can see there. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Ooh, look at that. So, I bet you're all freaking out now because we're going to be actually painting a person. Well, you don't need to worry. We're going to actually paint the piece first, then we're going to transfer then to do the details. So you can get really kind of colorful with the colors. So The portrait mix that I made here, I just used titanium white. Okay, add a little bit of yellow oxide to make it creamy, and a speck of naphthol red to make it peach. That's all it is. Okay, but you can make this any color you want. You can make it blue. What doesn't matter as long as the color is not too dark. Okay, so if you want to, if you had to choose a color, you know, for the darkness, yellow ochre is actually a good darkness of color. It's not going to be too dark, but you don't want to make it too light because then the masking won't show through. So I'm going to take this peachy color and I put a little bit of water in my brush, and this is a little bit too peachy for me, so I'm going to cool it down with a little bit of cerulean blue and a little bit of chrome green. There we go, that looks good. And what we want to do, we want to completely cover the cards, so do this slowly. Now again, you can choose whether you want whatever color you want with this. I want mine more on a cooler, like a serene type of look to it. So I'm just going to cover this like this, and then I can turn around and I can pick up some of that peach color and go into here. Wet on wet is based better when doing this. Okay, wet on wet. That way it blends really well. You can already see the masking coming through. And what's happening is the multi-surface sealer is rejecting, it's resisting the paint. Now, as I'm holding this, when I'm holding the corners, I also end up removing the paint, so I'm going to have to be aware of that. You can make the colors any way you want. It doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. So if I want to make an area a little bit darker, I can take a little bit more green, because we are going to end up doing something here in this corner. So I'm just going to put a little bit of green here, and I'm going to fade that right out. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush on a paper towel to get rid of the excess, and then we'll just kind of feather. But again, wet on wet is best for this. And if it ends up drying, then let it dry and then come back and put more paint on it. Yeah, that actually is pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside, put my brush in water, clean this up. The back of the card is going to be painted a solid color, so I don't really care if I get any paint on the back of the card, which I just did. And I'm going to speed up the drying time on this with my heat gun. Now, if you've, like I'm covering a lot of the beginner stuff, so if you already know how to use a heat gun, that's fine. Just fast forward the video. Okay, 12 inches above the paper. As long as my hand can stay there comfortably, I'm at a good level. You can use a heat gun on top of the Ranger mat. It's fine. But now look how dark this got. Because we have to do our transfer on this, we need to make sure this is dry. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that paint on my hands. Okay, make sure you put your brush in some water, rinse it out. Okay, so it doesn't, you don't want the acrylics drying in this. Okay, so now I'm going to lay this in the corner. Okay, that's pretty good right there. Now, if you want to do this with the grid method, that's fine. If you want to freehand it, that's fine. But I've received a couple of emails from people asking, how do you use graphite paper? So, the graphite paper that I get is from Royal and Lanical and Deco Art. Okay, the graphite paper is really this. This is graphite, okay, pencils. And you can make your own graphite paper by taking tracing paper, going over, okay, then wiping it down with a paper towel to get rid of the excess, and there's your graphite paper. For the cost of what this is, it's just worth buying it, okay? But the one thing, depending, it doesn't matter what brand you use, make sure it's wax free. Okay, if it says graphite paper, that's fine. If it's from a reputable manufacturer, that's good. But if it's some no-name, it says no-name transfer paper, okay, don't buy it, because if there's an ounce of wax in it, it's going to repel your paint, like a resist, okay? With the graphite, okay, when you get new sheets, just wipe it a little bit with a paper towel to get rid of the excess. Place it underneath your tracing paper. Don't slide it, because you're gonna slide some graphite in there. So just place it, lay it down. Now, all artists are different, okay? You can use a stylus, you can use a pen, you can use a pencil, it doesn't matter. Ideally, what you want to do is with a sharp pencil, with as light pressure as possible. Okay, as light pressure as possible, you make a line, then check it. That's good. That's actually a little bit dark, okay, but you can see it. Then you can come over. Now on new graphite, this will be, you can just go ahead and keep going, but on graphite that's used, you'll have to keep checking, because you may have gone over an area that's been well used, okay. There we go. And you don't need to do all the lashes. I'm just going to do a couple, or a few I should say, for the length. There we are. Take it up, don't slide it, take it out, and there we go. Take your line drawing, move it aside. Now you may want to have it handy just so you can see the image. Now with this here, we're going to be actually doing, you can leave the paint as is, it doesn't matter, or you can paint back over it. We are going to paint over it because obviously the eye's there. But look at how that beautiful stencil shows through. So this is where you can make, that's why you can make this piece any color you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, as long, the key for me is to leave this area, leave it blank. So what do we do now? Oh, forgot. A good test, if you've got good graphite paper, take a drawing eraser and just lightly go over it. If it comes off really easy, you've got good graphite paper. If you're having to rub and rub and rub and rub and rub, throw it away. Or keep it for a technique where you want a resist, where it's like more waxy. Speaking about wax, we are going to do a project similar to this, where we actually use wax paper to create our resist. How cool is that? So, put that brush away. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my little filbert. And now you can, again, you can choose to start painting stuff if you want, like painting individual details. I like the background kind of like the way it is. I am going to soften some areas though, so I'm going to take some of my portrait color. So this one here is titanium white with yellow ochre to make it creamy, then a little bit of naphthol red. It's too pink for me though, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of chrome green hue, which has a little bit of cerulean blue in it. Okay. And if you've seen portrait artists, on TV or seen their videos, you'll understand why you're constantly mixing colors, because portrait colors, there isn't just one out of the tube type of thing. You're constantly having to mix, but this project is made to be relatively easy. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to come in like this. I'm just going to kind of go over here. This area is light, okay? And I'm just going to feather that out. Pick up a little bit more of the green mix here. And blend that right into the background. Okay, I just want that to be kind of standing out where the face kind of fades. That's up to you. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And same thing with the head here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a little bit of water in that. You do want this to be a little bit darker. And this is a little bit lighter, but I'm just going to fade that out. This here though, a crisp line. Now, when you're using watercolor paper like this, it is extremely porous, so you may find that a lot of the paper shows through. Okay, that's common. That's not you. That's common. Okay, because it's so textured. All you have to do is just basically put on another layer, or you can, I say you can put multi-surface sealer on this, but then what happens is that you end up not having the strong effect of the resist. There we go. Oh, there's my fingerprint. My art with DNA. Okay, a little bit of water. You can also retransfer your lines if you want, just as long as your paint is dry. That's the eyebrow, that's the lid. All the lashes are going to go there. And I'm lightening this area here, well, because I want the lashes to really stand out. Really rub that. I can do this because this is non-toxic paint. Now, if you're using really cheap paper, you won't be able to rub hard like that because it'll just fall apart. Now, let's get the eyebrow in. Raw umber, a little bit of yellow ochre. Oh, that's ugly. You know what? Let's not do that. That's ugly. Let's just go with raw umber and a little bit of the portrait color. That's better. I shouldn't say that's ugly. That's ugly for what I want to do. All right, now turn that upside down. So now we're just going to be putting in the eyebrow. Now let me get an idea here. Where am I going? I'm going, oh, right here. And I'm just using my little #1 round, and I'm making this very dry. Not heavy on the paint, quite dry, wispy because it fades out to nothing. Okay, it fades out to nothing. Did I go far enough? Not even close. Not even close. It actually goes way over here. Keep it just random. Don't spend too much time on this part. This brush is a little bit soft for what I'm trying to do. If I had to now choose again, I would probably go with a brush that's a little bit stiffer. Maybe an Aquilon. I haven't done these before. Like, these are my first times doing these designs. I didn't make a sample piece ahead of time, so you're actually seeing everything. I'm not going to edit out the mistakes. That way you can see if I make any changes. Okay, take that same raw umber mix, which is raw umber, a little bit of the portrait mix, and I'm just going to come in, line that lower lid. This is the crease. Now when I'm doing portraits, I'm usually on an easel. So this is, I've got a darn glare. If you find it easier working on an easel, please do so. A little bit of water. There we go. And then the eyeball. Let's see. It comes out like this, and then like that. So I'm going to take carbon black with a bit of raw umber. I'm going to paint the inside of the eye. Actually, it's going to take a little bit of raw umber with a bit of the portrait mix just to lighten that up a little bit. Well, let's throw in a bit of cerulean blue. There we go. The black's a bit strong. Bit of water. Now, this brush is a little soft. This is a brush I actually use for watercolors. But the Aqualon brushes that I have, I don't have a filbert. And I use filberts for everything. I should have actually took the Aqualon round. Why I didn't is beyond me. I have no idea. Take a little bit of that portrait color. Okay, and then there's a little easy on the water. And you're just going to put a little bit in the eye here and right here. There's still a little bit too much water there. Let's try this again. There we go. And then you're just going to kind of touch a little bit in the actual eye for the highlight. And that eyeball color that we have here, and you're going to go back in, and now you're going to line the lower lid. There we go. Go back in now and just thicken up that upper lid. Now I'm just going to wipe out the brush a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a scribble right here. This is where the upper lid and lower lid meet, like so. And I'm going to let that dry for a sec. And while that's drying, I'm going to take my peach portrait mix. A little bit more yellow oxide. I'm going to make it nice and dark here. Actually, no, I changed my mind. I do something different. As I start seeing the piece developing, that's where I start coming up with my different ideas. I'm actually going to make this much darker. The portrait mix with more chrome green. Too light. More chrome green. You can actually, if you have Americana acrylics, green mist, you can use it pure. There we go. The torn edges of the watercolor paper usually need a little bit more attention. There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to straighten that up a little bit. And everywhere my hand keeps touching, I keep removing some of the paint. Okay. Now let's get our liner brush with carbon black, really watery. And we're going to come in here, touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift. Okay, you're going to create the lashes. Make sure your paint is really thin. Okay, and these lashes are actually going to go right over the eyeball. Start on that upper lid and then do your touch, push, lift. I'm just going to tilt this a little bit because I have a glare. So because it's watery, it's going to be lighter, and then we're going to come in with something a little bit darker. Less water. It's actually quite long, this one here. She's got really long eyes. Eyelashes, I should say. Okay, come in with a little bit more carbon black, less water. And now you're going to make these a little bit shorter. To make the eyelashes really, really deep. Where they come out from the lid. Now because this is stylized, meaning not a formal, not a formal portrait, it's more artistic, you can make these even gold, these lashes. Making them gold, you can bling it up. Okay. Like so. And a little bit of raw umber. Oops, let's get a different brush, a round brush. A little bit of raw umber, a little bit of water, a touch of that portrait mix. Something very, very light. And just, this is that crease under the eye. Okay. And then we're going to go back over this one here. That same crease. And I'm going to take some of that portrait mix, pure. And this color really doesn't matter what you use, okay? Because this is going to go over the upper lid. This is the eyelid here. This is a really fun project to do because you can do this so many different ways. What's really cool is that if I'm teaching this in an actual class, like face-to-face with face-to-face people, is that all the different things that you see. Same concept, same premise, same theme, but all the different styles. Here we go. And I'm going to take a little bit of that washy raw umber, and it's going to deepen up her eyebrows a little bit more here. Okay. And then from at this point here, it's actually finished, but you can choose now, if you want to enhance things a little bit more. I can take the portrait mix with a little bit more yellow oxide, and I can turn around now and let's see, right in here, make this a little bit more yellow, a little warmer. Just make sure you kind of rub out that end there. I'm just going to put this along this edge here. It'll kind of make a nice glow, like a highlight. You don't even have to rub it out. You can leave it the way it is, like that, see? I forgot I didn't let this dry enough. I got a little bit of raw umber there. That's fine. This is such a easy little piece to do. Because there's very little colors, is that if you happen to cover something up, you can just go back over it. So making this part quite highlighted. See, I'm just going to go scrub back and forth. And you don't have to do this. Okay, this is just me. This is just the raw umber that I've got in there. And you can actually, if you had a liner, you could do the eyelashes with a liner. You could, what else could you do? Gonna get a bit of water. You could use metallic paint for the lashes. That would be really cool. And now that I'm doing this now, if I had to do this again, I would definitely use an extender in my paint. It is drying so fast. It's the video lights. It's the video lights that's making it dry so fast. So that's where you need the water. Then once you get out to here, you just kind of fade where it gets into the stencil part. You just kind of fade that into nothing. Now, if you find that it's too light, make it darker. If you make it darker, these leaves are going to stand out. What to do is you want to do it in one coat though, because if you keep putting paint and paint and paint, eventually these will start to disappear. See this one here? Not many are showing up. Okay, but I can turn around. I can use this to my advantage and continue her head. Bit of water. And right where the stenciling starts is I'll just fade it out. So the stenciling is starting here, so I'll just kind of fade that out. And where I'm touching this, see, I'm removing the paint, so I really should be careful. But the darker you make it, the more that the stencil is going to show up. Take a bit more paint. But you get the general idea. And let's just put a little bit more here. Take a bit of water now. And that'll fade out. You can choose to leave this the way it is. Excuse me. I'm going to paint that in. Now, if you want to know why I didn't do this in the beginning, well, because sometimes you can get an effect that's even nicer when you paint randomly. And I probably should be using my bigger brush, but I'm almost finished, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Just going to water that down right to just as I go on the outside, really water it down. And I'm using my finger to blend it in because I don't want any hard lines. Okay, so we'll let that dry. See, now that I put that yellow in there, the stenciling is showing up a little bit better. And I can come in with a bit more carbon black and just put in a few, not too many, longer lashes. Really making that lid, the lid where the eyelashes are, really make that dark. But yeah, that actually would have been nice with some little bit of like metallic, even a metallic paint would be nice. There. That's it. Let me clean this up here. So with this here now it's your choice whether you want to add some words to it. You don't have to. That's completely up to you. Okay, you can choose to put some wording in here. I'm going to let this dry. And then I'm actually going to, using decoupage, and I'll put a prompt. I'll probably put actually the prompt maybe here. Stamped actually would be cool. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll stamp it. And that I'm going to need to fix up a bit, but I'm going to leave this the way it is. But you can use a pen, you can write something down, you can print something out. Just make sure that everything kind of fades, okay, fades outwards into this nice nothingness right here. It's all dry now, but what I want to do is I'm going to show you, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to show you this really, really cool technique. So because my writing is awful, okay, I printed out the word Seeking Solace, and I used a cool font, and I'm thinking I wanted it something like this. Okay, so I could either do something like that, or I could do, you know, something like this, or like this, you know. But my thing is that if I do this, I'm going to end up covering a lot of this resist. Even if the resist wasn't there, I don't really like the white of the paper, so then I have to go back to paint it. To paint the white, I'm going to go over the letters, which means I'm going to have to repaint the letters, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be cool if we could just stamp the letters? Okay, well, I have stamps. I could do this, but that would be no fun. I'm going to show you how to do an image transfer of the words in reverse. So what I did is I took this, and to show you how simple this is, I use WordPad, okay, which comes with Windows, and just typed it out. Then I did File, Print. Then I chose my printer, went to Printer Options, and this technique is all based on your printer, okay? So in my settings, I have a little place where I can make a check mark, Mirror Image. And what it does is it literally prints the image in reverse. So now I have Seeking Solace printed in reverse. Okay? Then what I did is I trimmed it down as close as I could to the letters. Okay? I'm going to get decoupage. I'm going to use the gloss finish. And I've got this, an old Royal Soft Grip. This is a number 8 round. There's certain brushes that I use for doing this type of stuff, because these ones here I don't use for nice painting. They're good brushes, but they're old, and I just use them for this stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put decoupage on the letters. You do not want any of this decoupage on the top side. Okay, and put a good amount. Now let me just reach over. I should have had this first. I'm going to get my little tweezers. Okay. Lay it there and press. All right. Repeat. And why I'm not putting this on the paper first, because I don't want the gloss finish on the whole card. But if it did, it's not the end of the world. The key for this is make sure that you do not get any of this on the top side, because when we actually do the rub out, the paper is going to stay. And I got a little bit there. So let's see what happens. Yeah, see right here I got a little bit. Now, you could use any acrylic product for this. It doesn't have to be decoupage. It could be the matte, it could be the gloss. You could use anything that's a polymer based, which is acrylic based. You can even do this on gesso. If the paint was wet, I could do this technique. And what you're going to do is you're going to rub really hard, making sure you don't tear the paper. And what you're doing is that you're burnishing this. Now, I used to do this technique with laser prints. It does work better with laser, but when you're doing it with acrylics and inkjet, the finish is much more distressed. It looks more like a stamp. Now, you don't have to do the reverse. I only do the reverse when I want it to be a certain way. Okay? You want to really push that hard. And there's so many different techniques for doing this. You can do it, you know, there's acetate techniques. There's techniques that are a little bit more toxic where you use a solvent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this sit. Now, if this is your first time doing it, do a few practice pieces and let them sit overnight. Okay, but I've done this so frequently now, I can let this sit for just about 10 minutes. I just want to let the decoupage dry. Now let this sit for about 10 minutes. Then I'm going to rub it out with water on my finger, rub out all the paper, leaving just the black words. So I'll come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, just going to put a little bit of water on my finger. And come in, and as I start to rub, the top layer of paper starts to come off. Now, when you're doing this, also keep in mind that the more you rub, the more paper you take off, that you may start noticing your paper is dark. Okay, that's because it's the ink coming up as well. So I didn't quite let this dry long enough, but I'm just going to keep going here because we're running out of time. Okay, I've got many videos showing this technique. So if you're new to this, just let it dry. And again, it'll be different every single time. The environment you use, how much medium you use, how long you let it dry, the printer you print it on. The very first time I did this technique, I was in kindergarten. And I put a newspaper on silly putty. That's an image transfer. Okay, let me just get my heat gun and dry this a bit. Okay, and come back. Now, you won't be able to remove all the paper, okay, but I can focus on the outside edges. And then what you can do, you can also paint this piece as well. So you can see a border. Now, if you have a font that's really spaced far apart, that's even better. Now this can be rough on the fingers too, so you can let this dry out completely and still come back to it, so you don't need to worry. Okay, see as it's coming off? So I'm going to keep doing this for a bit until I get it to the point that I want. And then we'll come back and I'll show you the finished piece. Okay, so that's what we have now. Okay, you could choose to further go ahead with this. I'm going to take some one-step crackle, pour it over the whole thing. Okay, and what this is going to do is I'm going to have a layer of this over the whole card, which is going to appear cracked. The thicker you apply it, the heavier the cracks. Do not do this if you've used any type of writing material, okay, like a pen or anything like that. Don't do this because the medium may dissolve it. It will eventually level itself out. I like mine really thick, like really, really thick. And I have a couple of samples already done. I'll show you those as soon as I do this. And as I'm doing my pieces, and this is how I let the art guide me. Okay, once you start seeing this tack up, you have to leave it. Okay, you can't do any more. Now let me just get a couple of samples. So this is just a plain card just to really show the cracks in this. It's very shiny, but you should be able to see this. And what I did is I also made some little ATCs. Now this one here really shows it. Okay, beautiful, beautiful cracked image. Like, I love this. It's kind of hard to see because of the glare, but you should be able to get an idea. Okay, this one here, very fine. Okay, this one here I put the medium on much thinner, but right on top, see the cracks? And then you can go over this with with more paint. The paint will actually go inside the cracks to antique it. Okay, so because the one-step crackle takes about 2 to 4 hours to dry, depending on how thick it is, we'll come back with the whole piece finished, and then we'll end it there. There we go. It's all dried. So this took about 7 hours to completely dry, but look at the cracks in that. Isn't that beautiful? I don't know if you can see all the cracks there. There's some nice ones here. Here. I don't know. The camera won't be able to focus that close onto it, but there we go. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can bring some up here. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Wow. So this one is finished. So all that's left to do on this is basically just to paint the back of the card. Paint the back of the card with some random colors, and if I'm going to be giving this away to somebody, I'll put my full name, my blog, my email address, and the title of the card, which is Seeking Solace. So I really hope that you enjoyed this project and give it a try. Feel free to check out my blog at artplace.ca, and to also check out my art journaling group at creativeartjournaling.com. Until next time, stay inspired.